Hello and welcome to Midwest Writers Room. Our mission is to encourage, educate, and celebrate writers of the Midwest. I'm Luella Schmidt.
And I'm Ken Humphrey. Today we're interviewing Hannah Larrew. Hannah is the founder of Spellbound PR, a boutique public relations agency built for authors, artists, and creative people with stories worth telling. She specializes in thoughtful publicity campaigns, media relations, and strategic storytelling that connect meaningful work with the right audiences.
Hannah believes great PR starts with curiosity, finding the unexpected angle, the human story, or the bigger conversation that makes people stop, listen, and feel a little bit spellbound. Hannah, we are so happy to have you with us here in Midwest Writers Room. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You
Thanks for
bet.
coming on. So I don't know about you, Luella, but I'm especially excited for this episode because I think Hannah, you're probably the first publicist, like actual job title publicist that
Mm.
we've interviewed. And so this opens up a whole line of questioning, especially as Luella and I have said so many times on here. Writing a book is one skill, but the marketing, the promotion,
hmm
all that comes after is a completely different skill. And I think a lot of authors either don't have it, don't want it, or shy away from it. So I think we're going to get some real good meat on the bone. So before we talk about the actual work itself, we got to talk about you, right? We need to know Hannah's origin story. So, give us the primer. What was your education like? What was your literary upbringing like that kind of led you down this path?
Yeah, I'm kind of it's interesting when I think about my origin story because I was never really a I was always a big reader, but education-wise, I was very like I wasn't like the school kid, I wasn't interested in like listening in class and like doing homework, and actually kind of always went into a classroom knowing like I'm not going to pay attention to this. So, I mean, and that's honestly how it was for me. Like I went to college. I went to two colleges, in fact. I like had a very like, I was all over the place, which I guess kind of makes sense as to why I started my own business because I just wanted to dive in head first. So I think I feel like I always learn better by doing things versus like, I don't know, taking my time studying and doing, I don't know, which is interesting because my daughter is like the total opposite. She's like my husband who can like, he is so good at studying. He's in the medical field and he's just like, let me study for 8 hours a day. He could totally do that, but not me. So, but I was a big reader, so that was something I was always interested in growing up. I loved kind of getting lost in books, and I was relatively shy when I was younger. And it was just something, it was kind of like a safe space for me. So I was really into reading like all sorts of genres. I feel like the first book I really loved truly was Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy. And that was kind of the book where I was like, wow, there's so much to unpack here. It was kind of like you read the book, but it sticks with you forever. And there's all these different journeys wrapped up inside of two covers, So yeah, I mean, I've always loved to read. I feel like I always have reading goals and my TBR stack is always like 15 miles high. And I guess eventually I kind of was like, okay, how do I turn this into a career for me? Whether it's with just books or other things, like how do I work with stories? And that's kind of where I ended up, where I am now. So,
So, and first off, spirit animal with the approach to school. That's exactly my thing too. It's like, all right, I'm going to show up, I'm going to sit in this classroom, but I'm going to stare blankly out the window the entire time and think about other stuff. So, go
yes.
us.
hmm
Um, but so having said that, what led you to into PR as opposed to I want to become an author, I want to become an editor or a literary agent or some adjacent literary type field besides public relations?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, actually. And I will tell you, at one point in my life, I thought I'd be all of those things. So I have thought about it. I think my first thing was being an author. I was like, oh, I'm going to write for sure. And I do dabble in that a bit. Like I've written reviews and I do some, but it's all kind of more marketing style writing. And I have written some short stories and things like that. But I really think that what led me to PR was the relationships. So I'm pretty chatty. I like to connect with people, and I feel like I get. And this probably goes back to like me in a classroom setting too, right? Where I can't sit still and focus on one thing. I'm like, I want to be sort of out in the field, like building relationships. And, that's sort of my vision for progression, I guess, is like I want to be talking to people. And I think that PR is storytelling in a different way. So it was kind of touching on a lot of different things that I was interested in. And I did work in editorial at one point, and I worked for a newspaper at one point. And, I've done work with like partnering with literary agents for a long time. So I feel like I kind of have dabbled in and continue to dabble in a lot of these different areas. But again, for me, PR is just sort of this sweet spot where like I can still write. I write pitch work is like my favorite thing to do. I love doing it. It's because I'm writing, but I'm also building relationships with people through writing, and it feels special for me. And so I think that that's kind of the bread and butter for me is like I can still do storytelling, but I can also build relationships and be out in the field a little bit more.
So let's dig a little bit into that philosophy on building relationships. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess how do you approach it? What kind of your North Star when you're starting a new relationship?
Gosh, I mean, for me, I really love like soft pitching. I feel like I kind of begin every relationship and definitely every meaningful relationship I've ever had or have with a journalist or some sort of media or events rep is through like admiring what they do. I feel like so much of PR is research and just staying on top of trends and looking into what people are covering in media and the kind of events that are happening. And I really feel like I believe in so much of it. And a lot of the people that I reach out to are people that I've researched and feel like, oh, our visions align. It's not something like I'm not reaching out to a journalist that like maybe has a huge following but doesn't align with anything that I'm working on. I feel like I have to really respect what they're doing. And then for soft pitching, it's just like, hey, do you want to get together? Like have a virtual chat at some point? Like because I mean it, and I think that's the thing. It's not really a formula for me. It's more like I actually want to do that. Like I want to have a virtual coffee with you. I want to talk to you about your dogs. Like I want to hear about what you're doing today, because I feel like that is so much better to do for everybody than just sort of like generic pitch work where you're like, hi, I'm working on this project. Can you please do this for me? Because it doesn't feel good for me. And I certainly don't think it feels good for them. So I feel like having that relationship be more like casual and just getting to know somebody, it makes you feel more tied to them. And I think that kind of is what gets me where I need to be in the long run. And hopefully for them too, because it's matchmaking. Media work is matchmaking. You're trying to make everybody happy. So, um, yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Boy, that opens up so many questions I could ask. I kind of want to stick with what we had scripted out, but one thing that occurs to me as you're talking, I'm listening. So when you sign on a new author, for
Hmm.
instance, do you have some type of ratio or formula or structure that says, okay, for this author, I need to reach out to X number of journalists, or is it you just kind of make it up based on what each author's project is?
Yeah, it's totally based on what the project looks like. So every author I work with is, and this is something I really love about what I do with my business is like I don't really have a basic generic like these are the packages I offer. This is what you'll get with that. I kind of tailor it to what the person needs and what the project needs. And a lot of that is because I've worked with a lot of different creative people. It's not just authors. I work with musicians, with fine artists. I have activists that I work with. I mean, nonprofit organizations. So it's not really a one size fits all for me. And I guess all of this, it's funny as I'm talking about this, I keep thinking about myself in school now, where I'm just like, this all makes so much sense that this is how I am because I just sort of have, I don't know, I don't really believe in formula, I guess, very much. I'm sort of a create your own thing. And I really think that everybody's story, as it applies to book marketing and PR, like everyone's story is so different. And not everyone's looking for the same thing. Like I know so many authors and definitely a lot that I've worked with who are like, I do not ever want to go to an event. Please don't make me do this, because it's just, I would rather be in my cave writing all day and that's okay. I mean, there's things like social media and TikTok now and media, there's so much else that you can do. Which is great, but like I wouldn't create a project that incorporates a ton of events then or a traditional book tour. In terms of journalists, I mean, when I'm working with an author, like the first thing I'll do is just ask them what their goals are. And if a big part of that is getting reviews, which it usually is, or interviews on podcasts like yours, or major placements on, literary TV segments, that kind of thing. I mean, then I kind of, what I do is I go through the book, I read every book that I publicize. So that's something that I feel like is what gets those creative juices flowing because there's always some angle that you wouldn't know unless you read the book, like some location that's mentioned that has, or a local business or something, that you can reach out to. Um, but there's not really a set number of journalists I would reach out to. I think that like there's always a ballpark range. Like I'll send overall in a PR project like 75 to 100 pitches, knowing that like maybe a third of those land. Maybe less. It just kind of depends on what's going on. So, yeah, I feel like it really is dependent on what the project is.
So you came to us on behalf of one of your clients, which, spoiler alert, that's going to be the next episode that we do in a couple of weeks. But you sent an email right to our inbox. It sounds like that's a very common thing you do on behalf of your clients. Would you say that is?
Yeah, like email you direct. Yeah, for sure.
And now, is that just something you do? I guess, what I'm trying to dig at is how deep down the barrel do you go in terms of your own lift on behalf of an author versus giving that author a playbook and say, here, do this. This is your marketing plan. How do you balance those two things out?
Yeah, so you mean like how often do I do the outreach versus how often do I tell the client to do the outreach?
Yes,
Oh, I
correct. Yes.
I I do all of it. I prefer to do it like that. I mean, unless it's a consulting project, which I have several of those usually at a time, and that's something where I'm like, okay, here are some angles that you can work with. Here's some outlets you can reach out to and just introduce yourself and see if this fits. Then in that case, they will be doing it. But if I'm the publicist on the project, it's me doing it. I like to streamline communications mostly, and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. I find that having too many cooks in the kitchen, it's just there's emails kind of floating around everywhere, and you're kind of lost in the translation of scheduling and things like that. It just gets really tricky. Plus, I mean, it's my job. It's my job to make this easier for the author. It's my job to make this easier for the journalist, or for the media platform. I want it to be a fit. And I want to make sure everything's taken care of. So I think like it depends on the scope of the project, but mostly I would say it's me.
So I think you're hitting the sweet spot for a lot of our authors, at least the ones that we've come across who want somebody to do that, right? Too
Yeah.
often they'll get the marketing plan. They say, okay, you have to do these, you have to go to these events, you have to apply to these podcasts, enter these contests. I think that's where a lot of authors sort of stumble to a
Mm-hmm.
halt because it's like, I don't want to have to do this on my own. So you saying you handle all of this, on their behalf. I think right now there's a ton of authors listening to this episode, their ears are just perking up. It's like, oh, wait a minute. That might be a good idea. So one of the things that occurred to me as you're talking is, I mean, there's probably got to be some sort of PR community out
Yeah.
there of, people who are doing a very similar thing to you, and specifically in the literary world. What type of crossover do you have? What type of community do you have that you rely on or network, or don't you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, so I was really lucky because I was brought into the PR world I had a mentor. I graduated from college and she was a book publicist. And seriously, it was me and her at a table of one of our clients at the time, Walter Bennett, who is still a client now. He's amazing. But this was, yeah, 15, 14 years ago. And the two of us were sitting at his kitchen table with like 20 book projects, the two of us, just the two of us. And I'm like fresh out of college. I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, sure, I'll do this. You're just like fresh face, like diving in. And it was a lot, but it was great. And so my introduction to the PR world and the PR community was really smooth because it was immediate. I started working with her as like her assistant, I would say, like her left hand. I was doing a lot of the stuff like building press kits. And at that point in time, we were delivering books to local news stations in person. And it was just, you would never do that now, but it was just lucky for me because it was all immediate. And I just kind of was able to build this community and meet other publicists in the area through her work. And, North Carolina, which is where I'm from and where I worked with her, there's a lot of really great PR firms. I mean, I could shout out a ton of them, like Goldleaf Literary, Lauren Harr. Like there's so many people, and they're all so supportive of one another. I think that that was the thing, and it sounds very similar to where you guys are in Wisconsin. Like it's a lot of great writers that support each other. It's very similar in the PR world, and it's like, and I'm working with another publicist right now on a book project for Walter Bennett. So it's kind of full circle for me, and that's Kelly March. She's a great publicist too, and it's we all kind of work together. And I think like being a publicist, like a single publicist for so long with my own business and doing contract work, it's easy to, get really tied up in the work and not meet people that you could view as competitors or whatever. But I guess for me, I never really have thought of it as a competition. I just feel like it's kind of the same approach that I work with my authors on, is like in to meet journalists and things like that. It's all collaborative. And I actually just hired my first publicist under the Spellbound brand recently, and she has been phenomenal. And it's been so amazing. So I can just see it expanding from here, which is really exciting. And yeah, I mean, showing up to events, like emailing other firms, building these relationships, it's all kind of the same across industries, I guess.
That's great to hear because that is, I mean, that's really the way it is here, Luella, right? With not only WWA, but our Midwest authors, it is not a cutthroat industry in terms of everybody trying to outdo each other. It is very supportive. At least that's what I found. Authors were very willing to help other authors.
Agreed.
All
That's
right.
really nice.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into the WWA message. Okay, folks, the early bird registration window for our fall conference is closing August 31st. While there's still some tickets available at a discounted price for WWA members, they are going fast and hotel rooms are filling up fast. So don't hesitate, register today. Learn more at wiwrite.org under the events menu section.
All right. We are back with more Hannah Larrew. Yay. We're going to turn a little bit more toward advice that you may have for our writer listeners. And maybe we can just start by kind of picking your brain a little bit about, I don't know, what your top of mind successful tactics are when you're working with a new writer client.
Oh man, successful tactics as far as like, geez, like with the client directly with the writer, or as far as getting the work out there?
I think getting the work out there, basically.
Okay, I mean, yeah, branding. Easy answer. I mean, I feel like I get so many questions from authors, especially debut writers. I have a couple of writers that I've worked with for years, and they've been doing this forever and they have their routine down. They know what to expect. But I think with debut authors, a lot of the time they don't. And to make it a successful project, it's really to kind of nail into the brand. And because I always feel like authors want to like tie everything that they do to the specific book that they're publishing. It's like, should I create a website for my book? Should I name an Instagram channel after my book? And that's not really how I recommend doing it, and I know a lot of people don't. It's really making your author brand stand out. I like to use the example of like, okay, so you like John Grisham, that's your favorite author. You're probably going to buy any book that he writes if you love John Grisham. It doesn't really matter what it's about. And I feel like when I take on a project and we're talking about the book that's coming out, and I'm asking them, oh, so who is your ideal reader here? What do you want how do you want them to feel when you're reading this? A lot of them can't really tell me that. And it's important to think about these things, and you really kind of like, if you're a Southern fiction writer, what does your website look like? What are the events that you're doing? Are you being creative with this? It's kind of nailing into that and making sure that they feel good about how they're coming across as an author. And I think that really translates to the media and to event venues and things like that is if it's a good brand and it's been really kind of nailed into, you can tell there's a lot of thought being put into it. It really comes across well and it ends up being a more successful experience moving forward.
It's interesting because I think of my business brain is like, well, here I am making these products, and each of these books is a product, and they might each have their own little brand, but overall, I'm the brand, right? Like that's
Yeah.
basically what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
And when you said that you've asked some of your clients sometimes to define your ideal reader, like that is straight business chat for define your ideal customer, like that is part of what they make you go through when you're marketing anything is to like put together this vision in your brain about who
Hmm.
your ideal client slash reader is. And that's really a helpful thing that I think about all the time, even not even to sell, just to write. Like I'm communicating with this imaginary person all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of funny to then be like, oh, that's right. Now I have to actually sell it to them.
Yeah. Exactly. It's kind of a weird thing, right? It's all these different conversations you're having with yourself in a way.
Yes, in my head. Yes.
That's
Super
normal.
normal for writers.
It really
So
is.
how
All the
about,
characters.
yeah, right. So, how about any common like pitfalls or things that you find you're saying repeatedly with maybe a new client that you find yourself having to educate the same thing over and over again because such a you thing that you would know, but a writer wouldn't.
PR is not sales.
Keep
That's the
going.
big one. I feel like that is something that like I always they hold hands, right? And that's kind of the idea behind hiring a publicist is that you want it to help get the word out about your books and your work. And that is so true. However, it is not my job to hang out on Amazon's back end or on, with when I work with publishers, which is I would say the most of my clients now have a publisher that I'm usually working with to get sales reports or, to keep up to date on information. But that's not really my job. My job is to create a good public image for you, to get you out in front of the right people, to get interviews for you, to help with any brand messaging. Um, I am here, and I'm also here to make your life easier when it comes to all of these things. I want it streamlined. I want it to be easy for you. I want it to work. But I am not a salesperson. So I am not the person out in the field that's going to be like, hey, come buy this, come buy this. And honestly, that's not my PR strategy either. I'm very much a storyteller. I am not a salesperson. So most of my marketing messaging doesn't feel like marketing messaging. So there's that. I think that there's also the expectation that a lot of authors have that my job is to make them famous. And that isn't it either. So
Well, I'm
yeah.
out.
Sorry. I can help, but it's just and it's also a partnership. I think that that is something I feel like and this isn't something I'm necessarily saying to clients a lot when we first work together because a lot of them know it, and I'm really fortunate to work with so many lovely people who are very talented and they know exactly what we're doing together and it's a partnership and we both have our roles and we're trying to do the same thing. But there have been conversations that I've had, like discovery calls with authors, where it's like you need to understand that this is a partnership. You're not hiring me to do all of this work and only me be putting any effort in. Like you have to be willing to go to events, to do this, to put your face out in the world. You need to be willing to be creative about how you speak about yourself and your work. You need to be willing to try things basically because it's not really once again a one size fits all campaign strategy ever. And I think that the more authors are able to look at it as a collaboration and a partnership, the more successful it'll be.
I like that. I really appreciated what you said in the beginning when you said you don't really have like pre-planned packages. Like, here's my three
Yeah.
packages, and I'm going to do all these things. But I'm wondering if you would be able to share at least a little bit into like what a writer might consider for a budget
Oh yeah.
for something like this, even if it's a very big range. If you can kind of educate us there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, yeah, so when I first started doing this when I was 21, I was charging like I was doing some projects for $250 a month. I was like trying to get my experience in, doing it. It was very, uh, I couldn't have lived off of it. But now I think as I've gotten further in my career, I've done so much refinement on what I offer and the packages. And every client that I get gets a custom package. So it'll be different like ranges of cost. But most of, I do have an hourly rate and a consulting rate, and that's $125 an hour. I feel great sharing that. That's kind of a reasonable, I would say an industry standard in my community. And then there's the package rates that really could range anywhere depending on what they're looking for. So if it's like a minimal basic package, like usually around 1,700 up into 5,000 a month, depending on the services that folks are looking for. So, but it ranges, and I always, if I'm passionate about something too, like for nonprofit work, I, I can kind of refine it based on budget needs. I know several folks are like that, some are not, but that's kind of something that I do. But general range, that's kind of what it is for
That's
me.
helpful. Thank you. And do your clients tend to like, work with you for like, let's say we're launching a new book and,
Mm-hmm.
is there a time period around the launch date that they work with you commonly? Or is it more like, do you have more successful or more long-term successful writers maybe have a long-term, every month they work with you for 2 years straight or something, I don't know. Is there
Yeah.
any?
Yeah. So no, so if it's a short-term project, I work at the minimum 3 months ahead of a publication date. So it's usually 3 months before, 3 months after if it's a launch project. I've had several clients for years, and these are people that just are always writing. One of my clients is we were worked together for 10 years, I think, and he's taking a hiatus for like the first time ever right now from writing. And I'm like, oh, what do I even do? Can't talk to you. Or I can, but it's different. But yeah, it kind of it differs. And then there's folks who, if it's a branding project, that's continuous. Or nonprofit work. I mentioned I work with activists. That is ongoing. But for a book launch project, yeah, usually 6 months is the standard. It often goes a little bit longer than that. Just like a lot of the events I plan are far in advance. So I do a lot of festival submissions and that kind of thing. And a lot of the time and they like to have me kind of work on media around festival appearances or long-term event appearances, things like that.
Nice. All right, I'm up to my favorite question, which is of course the special sauce. We like to ask our all of our guests to share a little bit of something that they are into, that they nerd out about, something that is usually not related to whatever your day job is. So, what do you got for us, Hannah?
Uh, oh man, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this so much. I am
Pressure's
gonna
on.
say cows. I am obsessed
Oh,
with cows. I don't feel like I could say anything but that.
Wait, you just
It
said
was
cows?
I
cows. I
love that
love
so
them.
much. Cows.
I love them. I
Cows.
love them so
One
much.
word. Did you ever do cow tipping when you were younger?
No, no. What is cow tipping?
It's well, I mean, you probably know this too. We did this when we were young. You get after a party, you run out in the field with a
After
bunch
a
of
party.
friends, find the cows, and you try and tip them over because they're standing there and they're half asleep. You try and tip them over. It's called cow tipping.
Oh,
It's
I
the
hate that.
dumbest thing, and it is much harder than you would think.
Well,
Like
yeah, they're
So
massive.
I
they
heard
are.
about that when I was little, and I never actually partook because my understanding was that it was always like an old wives' tale, like you could not actually tip over the cows when we're sleeping.
Nope.
But maybe I'm wrong.
No, I
We were
would
not a
actually
dairy
agree with
farm.
that. I think I still have a bruise on my shoulder from trying to ram into a cow to tip it over when I was really young, and it went nowhere. And it took me about an hour to get back up
Okay,
off the ground.
we're getting
I
distracted. Hannah, tell me why you picked
You probably
cows.
deserved it.
Tell us more.
This poor animal. I love them. So I grew up down the street from like a cow hobby farm. And I just always felt this kind of like peace around them. And it's a real thing for me. I love them so much. I don't eat beef. I am very much like, I don't know. I have this like spiritual connection to them. I literally behind me, I have a like watercolor painting of dancing cows, and I work with like animal rights is my cause. Like I work with sanctuaries, and I've learned so much about just like farming and factory farming and these things, and I just love them. And when I was in high school, I think, and I was driving with some friends on a trip, and I looked out the window, and my friends always say, like, remember this happened? I just wasn't even thinking about it, and I was like, I love cows. And I don't know. I think that they're so sweet. And then I have two kids. I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. But my daughter, we took her to a little farm here in Indiana, and they have baby cows there a lot. And she was making these faces with this baby cow, and it was the same. They're like imitating each other. And I just feel like, I don't know. It feels so good to be around them. I just love them so much. So I guess that's my shout out to cows.
Fantastic. I love it.
You know what, Luella? That is also probably the most succinct special sauce answer that we've ever gotten. What do you like? Cows. That's my special. Cows.
Yep, I was
Clarity.
sure.
Yes, you
There's really
were.
no question. There was nothing else for me to say.
No waffling for you. So, Hannah, tell listeners where they can find you, either physically or in the virtual world.
Yeah, so I'm located in Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been here for, I guess, like almost this is my third year here, so it's been fun to kind of dip into the literary community here. But online, my website is spellboundpublicrelations.com, and yeah, that's kind of where I connect with folks.
All right, and we'll throw that link down in the show notes. All right, Luella, let's get some good news out there.
You betcha, listeners. If you want to celebrate your good news with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at podcast@wiwrite.org. Ken, you want to kick us off?
Yep, I'm going to start with congratulations to WWA member Laura Heiler. The Theater for Young Audiences awarded her a fellowship to advance her debut middle grade book into a youth play. Additionally, the Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing has awarded her a second fellowship following her initial fellowship in 2024. Way to go, Laura.
Laura's always doing such cool things. We are also going to shout out a few WWA members, including Julie Holmes, Rob Young, and Chris Norbury, who, along with two other authors, published a book called The Kill Code Collective earlier this year. So get this, this is a medical thriller written by 5 authors, which they believe is one of only about 13 novels in history ever written that way. And each author in this project apparently brought their own signature character from their own previous novels into one shared stories. And so they had like 2 years and dozens of Zoom meetings and ended up with a standing room only release event. So very cool project. That was released back, I believe, in May. And I missed it until now, but I wanted to give all 3 of you a big, big shout out. Way to go. That's very cool.
That is
Ken,
really
what do you
one
got
of
for good news? Yeah, right?
that's one of the coolest things I've heard of. All
I
right, so
know.
my good news just comes from a personal front. My youngest son Cole graduated high school, and so he heads out for Marquette in his double major in finance and accounting at the end of the month, which leaves my wife and I with an empty house. So you're just gonna find me rattling around the house shouting from one corner to the other. How
I love it.
about you, Hannah? What you got for good news?
Gosh, I guess I'm gonna roll with I'm on vacation next week, so that's really nice for me. It's a personal thing for me too. I'm going to St. Pete's for the first time ever. So we're gonna check out Treasure Island, and we're originally from Charleston, South Carolina, so we're missing the ocean in the Midwest. So we're excited to just have some downtime by the
Good
water.
for you. Yeah,
So
I'm
I got to
kidding.
ask you before we get Luella's good news. I have to ask you then, as a business owner, do you treat your vacations? Do you say, okay, I get 2 weeks per year? I mean, do you kind of treat it like a corporation would that gives you an allotted amount of time, or you just take what you need?
I take what I need. I think that's the best part about running your own business, right? But having said that, I don't, it's also like you're never fully offline. You know what I mean? Like I think now that I have someone working with me, it's been great to have a point person if it's necessary. But even when I'm on vacation, I'll have my cell phone number available for anyone. Like I'm always like for media and event related emergencies or inquiries, please text me because I don't want to miss anything. But yeah, I feel like I take what I need when I need it, when I feel like I need it.
Best perk. All
Mhm.
right, Luella, what's your good news?
Okay, well, my good news is a bit of an inspiration story. So I went to Galena, Illinois for the weekend with some girlfriends, and we went to the West Street Sculpture Park, which is this collection of massive welded, like steel sculptures that he has on his property. And it was just very striking and cool. And there's a website if you want to go look it up. But also the whole time I was there, my brain was just firing off like story ideas. Like I want to do the nonfiction real story about this guy, this artist, and all of these things. But also I want to create a brand new story, like maybe a murder somewhere in a situation like that. Because at night, imagine these giant sculptures must be shadowy and scary, right? Or just, make up some weird story that is related to a sculpture park, because that was just weird and cool, like it was just really neat to see. So there you have it. Inspiration in the strangest of places. Again, our email address is podcast@wiwrite.org. We'd love to give you a shout out.
And I can't wait for Luella's book on strange metal sculptures that come to life at night.
Yeah,
I was
sounds really
more
good.
ideas than I do time. Always more ideas than time. It's very exhausting.
That
It's a
is
hard
the
balance.
way it goes. All right. So I want to take this time to thank Hannah for coming and joining us today on the pod. As a PR, literary PR, I mean, not confined to that, but focused on that, I thought it was very, very insightful. The things that she was saying in terms of what authors do and don't do, right? What the mindset is, what the mindset should be. So, folks, if you've enjoyed this episode, if you learned something today from this episode, please give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app of choice. This is the type of action that helps other writers find us. Thanks for hanging out with us today in the Midwest Writers Room. I'm Ken Humphrey.
And I'm Luella Schmidt. Words ignite imaginations and spark change. Never underestimate the power of storytelling.
Midwest Writers Room is a production of the Wisconsin Writers Association. Writing and editing by Luella Schmidt and Ken Humphrey. Sound design and editing by Ken Humphrey. Music for the Midwest Writers Room was written by Michael Ramir C. For more information, please visit wiwrite.org/podcast. Thank you.